be 65 this year. Other than the time that I've spent away at San Diego State, I've been in the Pasadena community. I went to Pasadena Public Schools. I graduated from Pasadena High School. I see at least one Veer grad here, so that's good. But for me, this is all about community. And we have been through, and you have been through, literally hell. And I think it's important as we go forward, and we have to be unified in being able to meet you where your needs are. To be able to build and create pathways for that to happen, and to happen effectively for you. And for those who are looking to get other support in this process, to have access to understanding the insurance policies and process and how to navigate through that, to be able to understand how to get back on your land and know that you're not moving back on land that may have contamination, to understand what public policy comes out of this process. And that's where I also wear that hat for LA Fire Justice. And so for me, this has been a really easy decision to join with this organization, because it's one that believes in restoration. It's one that believes in making sure that community is a part of the solution, that you have some major decisions to have to make. You've been through a lot, and my heart goes out to all of you, and for your families and others and friends that you know and are affiliated with, and what they're going through. Those who are still living in hotels, those who have still yet not found a hotel. And so we know that this is a process, but what I want to impress upon you is that have hope. I feel that I am affiliated with an organization that has a team of lawyers who are so dedicated to a process of making sure that your needs are met. They have the experience. They've been through this in the Tubbs Fire, Paradise, and in Hawaii, and Maui. They never left. I'm impressed because they became a part of the community. They got an office. They've hired from the community to go out and engage with the community about how we can be value added to what you're dealing with right now. And so for me, that's commitment. That's something that comes from the heart. There's integrity in how they do what they do, and there is knowledge that is second to none. As chair of the Utility and Energy Committee for the California State Assembly, I've had my share of dealing with lawyers over a period of time, dealing with utilities like PG&E that were not great players in their community and impacted on everyone in major ways, and where we had to write laws to make sure that the kinds of behavior that they exhibited, that all of you and many of us who have gone through that, and those who are yet to be victims of future fires that are utility caused, don't have to be victimized over and over again. You'll hear from what I think are people who just happen to be lawyers, who are second to none, because they're people first. They lock onto the humanity, and that's why I'm here. If I didn't feel that connection, then I would probably be sitting in the seat and trying to be convinced that they can do the job. They can do the job. But the other important part, that this is a process that allows for this organization to meet you in the other areas of your concern. And that's where I come in, and we're an amazing team that's doing amazing outreach. And this team is made up of people, as I said before, from this community. And so I want to encourage you to listen, to gather the information, and then make your decision in the time that you feel comfortable to make it. This is about information and informing you and giving you an insight on what happened on that night that the fires broke out from a perspective that you may not know or have seen. And so the person that I want to introduce to have come up and start us down that process of conversation, his name is Douglas Boxer. And Doug is a guy, is a lawyer but he's a guy who I've known a long time and certainly known his family. My dad and his mom served in public office for many years. My dad, Ian Holden, you may not have heard. His mom, Barbara Boxer, you probably have heard. But we have an amazing team. We have community activists like Erin Brockovich, who has a stellar background and is clearly undeniable for someone who's an advocate for consumers and the people. And so when I look at the whole part of that, it spells caring. And so let me introduce you to Doug Boxer. Doesn't have a C in his name, but caring is who he's all about.
Thank you, Chris. He's very, very tall, and I am not. Thank you, Chris. Well, first of all, welcome to our office. This is the first. Presence. I realize what you've been through. I haven't been through directly myself, but this is about the 8th wildfire I've worked on, and my partners, Mikal Watts and Christian Archer, and the rest of the team have worked on a lot more than that. And it's never easy to stand up here and look at the folks and know what you've been through. All I can tell you is the information that we are going to provide to you is for your purposes to understand what your legal rights are, and for you also to understand that there's a team of people in this office that will be here for as long as it takes to support you through this journey. And Chris talked about hope. We see that in some of the other communities that we've worked in, where we, because of the legal work that Mikal Watts and I and others do, the resources get back into the community so that you can begin to rebuild your lives and your homes and your community. So at the end of the day, that's our goal. The question is, how do we go about doing it? And Chris used that word caring. It's absolutely something that I take with me every day, to know that I can try to do my little part to help you get back to where you were before the fire. I certainly understand that this is a long journey, that the community of Altadena, Pasadena, and parts of Sierra Madre, it will be a slog for you to get there. But again, we will be a partner with you all the way. I wanted to just explain a little bit about what this office is and who we are and why. Here. We're not going anywhere. Mikal Watts will come up and explain to you the timeline of the litigation, which is just getting underway. But just know that this office here. The other thing we'd like you to do is we want you to shop around for a lawyer or a law firm. We think we're pretty good at what we do, but we also understand that you have a choice if you decide you want to do this. So you make your own decision. Kick the tires. I think you're going to hear from Mikal in a second, the information that you're going to get from him about what started this fire, why it started, how it started, and what it means for you and the community will be unparalleled in the depth and the detail. But I want you to go out and do it for yourself with other attorneys. And if you like what you hear, you can come back. And we'll be here for you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mikal to talk about everything that we do, the work we do, the work he's done. And let me just, by way of introduction, say I'm a California lawyer. And I've been a California lawyer for a long time. And unfortunately, our utilities in California have this habit of starting wildfires, which destroy communities and kill people, sad as it is. It's tragedy. I saw it in Northern California, obviously in Santa Rosa and in Paradise. We've been down here and fought that fire on the other side of the mountain range. But I constantly turn to Mikal Watts to help these California communities get the justice each deserves. He's one of the smartest lawyers I've ever been around, and I think you're going to see that here. And I'm just so grateful that he wants to be part of this effort to help this community get the resources it needs to rebuild. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and we will be here. I will be here until this is over. Answer any questions you have. So, Michael.
Good evening. I'm Mikal Watts. It's good to see familiar faces. I think when we had our town hall on February the 7th, I told everybody to take out your iPhone and text 10 people about what you just saw. And bring them to our next meeting, and some of you did. Thank you. And as to everybody that you recruited here, thank you guys for coming. It's good to see you. If I could, just get a show of hands. Whose house burned? I want to start off by just telling you how sorry I am that we're meeting under these circumstances. I think somebody mentioned, this is my 22nd wildfire in 7 different states over the last 7 years. I tell the story, I feel a little bit like Bill Murray in that movie Groundhog Day. Every morning I wake up at 6 o'clock and it feels like the same thing over and over and over again. Not to diminish what you've gone through, but to tell you that through the principle of experience, you will get through this. You will rebuild this town. You will be better off than you were, believe it or not, because this will bring your community better. And I always like to start this right here, and I tell you to have hope. This picture in the upper left-hand corner is a neighborhood in Santa Rosa, California, known as Coffee Park. And I was in Sacramento in October 2017 doing a practice court on a case that was completely unrelated. And I couldn't breathe, and I remember thinking, what's going on? I can't breathe. And 45 miles away in Santa Rosa, a utility-caused fire known as the Tubbs Fire killed 34 people and burned down 5,500 homes. And when I saw neighborhood after neighborhood that looked like Dresden in 1945, I knew that it was time to spring into action. And so we opened an office there. We ended up representing about 2,000 people, trying to find our way as out-of-state lawyers helping people. And while we were doing that and doing battle with Pacific Gas and Electric about whether they caused that fire, they deny. They burned down another town called Paradise, the Camp Fire in 2018. They killed 85 people, burned down 14,000 houses. And so we opened up a second office over the hills to help those people out. And while we were representing 16,000 people, that company, which was a bad company, declared bankruptcy. And so we spent the next year in federal bankruptcy court doing battle for our clients, and we were able to get those clients $13.5 billion in cash and stock, and that led to the rebuilding of entire communities in Northern California. And I'm here to tell you that when you drive through Santa Rosa right now, it's newer and better than ever. That process is happening right now in Maui. A couple of August ago, I was in New York taking depositions in a pharmaceutical case. We were presenting our experts on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday, and I had grand plans to go to Broadway plays over the weekend. And by Thursday, I was getting phone calls from people in Maui. And they know that I do a lot of these cases, and what do you think? And before you know it, I felt this gravitational pull that put me on an airplane overnight and took me to Maui on Saturday morning. And my friend Doug Boxer was already there. He left his wife on the Big Island, not smart. And we literally were rooting around Lahaina, trying to figure out what happened. Sneaking drones past the FAA to document the evidence. And within about 36 hours, we were able to show that that utility had caused that fire. And I'm proud to say we settled that case in less than a year for over $4 billion. And that same picture, I drove by it last Friday night when I flew to Lahaina to talk to those clients. That community is rebuilding. This will happen to you. And I want you to have hope. I know you've been through hell, okay? What I'm doing here today is I want to take you through what we've been doing what caused this fire, why it happened, what your rights are, and what the process will look like if you choose to be involved, okay? So let me just kind of run through this just real briefly. And we'll go through them one by one, and then I'll answer any questions that you have. Now, LAFirejustice.com is our website. I encourage each of you to type in that URL into your phone and text all of your friends. We try to put up every single thing we have on that website, and it's informational. There's videos of every town hall that I've ever done. There's all sorts of pictures. There's all sorts of how-tos. There's all sorts of resources where you can go for help. Funds that are available. All sorts of charitable organizations that are available. It's all there, and I really want you to go there. So it's been 50 days since this fire. What have we been doing over the last 50 days? I'm going to split it up into 20 days, 10 days, and 20 days. The first 20 days, we go through a protocol where we're trying to see whether or not this fire was caused by the utility, because it's not lost on me that most of the people that I represent have never been in a lawsuit before. A lot of people believe the legal profession's full of a bunch of sharks and scoundrels, and now you're seeing it through your own two eyes, all these crazy ads that you're getting. I stopped trying to defend this profession a long time ago. Okay? We have a policy that I don't like doing meetings like this in the first 30 days after a fire. Frankly, you've got more important things to do than have a bunch of lawyers trying to sell their wares to you. So what we do is we spend those first 30 days trying to figure out what happened, so that when you come out of the fog of war, which is a wildfire, you're ready to receive the information. Is this a righteous endeavor? Is this a true lawsuit, or is it one of those silly, frivolous lawsuits that you read about? And so I spend a lot of money. I've got experts that are up all over that hill for weeks. And it was good because we had to document the evidence before they locked us out, which they did, and before the first rain comes, which will change all the evidence. Okay? Fortunately, we got there in time. And I did something that I don't usually do, and that is 20 days into it, we held a big press conference in that room right over there. And the only reason I did it is your utility was feeding you a line of, in Texas we call that bull. They were just giving you nonsense. The different stories that came out. Good news, it wasn't our line. We didn't have any lines near where this fire started. Good news, there were no faults on our lines. By the way, this fire started with some people who were camping there on a 55-degree slope where this fire happened, but they were camping according to your utility. And so over and over and over again, they were misinforming the community that they harmed with utter nonsense. And I got some, I called up my buddies here and said, set a press conference. We've already done the work. We know that they started it, and we're going to show it to the ladies and gentlemen of the press and to the people of Altadena, so that at least as you're going through this trauma, you can do so with the truth of what actually happened instead of corporate misinformation. And so we had that press conference, and on the good side and the bad side, the good side is we were able to educate everybody that the utility did it. On the bad side, I gave the playbook to all of my competition. They all, oh, I know what happened. We'll show it to you, okay? But more importantly, I want each of you to understand, if this is your first involvement in a lawsuit, this is heady stuff that we're doing. There is nothing wrong with availing yourselves of the courts of this land. It's in the Constitution. It's in the Bill of Rights. 3 guys you may have heard of, Washington, Madison, Jefferson, refused to sign off on the ratification of the United States Constitution until that was added to the Bill of Rights in the 7th Amendment. A right to a trial by jury in civil cases worth more than $20 shall remain inviolate. It's important. I stand before you an old guy. I used to be the young guy. I've been doing this for 35 years. I truly and fundamentally believe in the good that can happen with a bar card if you do it for the right reasons. And I'm telling you, this is a righteous lawsuit. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. When somebody burns down your house, you deserve to have them pay you for it so that you can rebuild that house and move back into it into something that we call a home. You are entitled to do that under the Constitution. I want to give you the information so that you feel good about participating in this if you choose to do so. What we do is we digitize miles of the area of origin. And I'll show you how we do that. And then we can, in effect, superimpose the location of structures that we know with video and photographs that we have from different angles. And I'll take you through that, because the fastest way to counteract nonsense is to show people what happened. And so we've done that. We came out here, met with a bunch of union representatives. Our brothers in the trades are helping get the word out. Hundreds of them. Tomorrow we have 2 different meetings at the Teamsters. One of your jobs, regardless of who you decide to go with, if you decide to go at all, is to spread the word among the community about what's up. Okay? Because communities, when they have facts, tend to rise up from the ashes and work together to rebuild themselves. And this case is one of the ways to do that. So we've done a lot of community outreach. Our first town hall was on February the 7th. You might mark the date, that was 30 days after the fire, not before. And so we're trying to get the information out. We've spent those 30 days not with a bunch of silly Instagram ads with wheelbarrows of money falling out, you know, all the crap that, all these terrible ads. We spent those 30 days learning what was happening so we could show it to you. And then we've been getting the word out and talking to people, and we'll keep doing that. We did that on the 7th, we did that on the 8th. We had a dinner right here in this room on the 21st, where I was proud to introduce my friend Chris Holden as a member of our team. And it is my honor, sir, that you joined us. You all were well served in the California Assembly for a long time. And he did pivotal things that are going to be the reason that this town gets rebuilt. Here's the office. You know it because you're here. We'll continue to have meetings right here. And why do I do that? We started at the Masonic Lodge. Why are we going to do it right here? Because of the 100 or 200 law firms that are putting out these ads, you cannot properly service a community from Georgia. You cannot properly service a community from the other side of LA. You have to do it right here where people are. Of the hundreds of law firms that decided they wanted to be wildfire lawyers in Maui, 3 opened up offices there, and 1 still has an office open there, and it's us. My commitment to you, other than we will work as hard as we can, is this office will not close until this case is done. Take it to the bank. This is a 5-year lease that we signed. Hopefully it won't take near that long, but we're going to be here as long as it takes, okay? The second thing I'll tell you is all those people in green shirts, they're not a bunch of transplants from Texas and out of state. What we do is we hire your neighbors. We train them how to do this, and we let their goodwill take over, because people from Altadena are more resolute about helping their neighbors than people who aren't. And so all of these people in these green shirts are your community members. They care, they know that if we do this right, we can rebuild this community, and we will. Now, I'll get to Chris in a little bit, but the bottom line is we'll keep having these meetings, one after the other after the other. Today's meeting, tomorrow we meet with 2 different groups of the Teamsters, and we'll keep getting the word out. The first thing I want to talk about is, how did this fire happen? If you have a TV, you've probably seen what we showed on the press conference, so I won't spend that much time on it. But the bottom line is the reconstruction of fires. I'm supposed to tell you this is the hardest thing in the world to do. It's not. Elon Musk has a bunch of satellites looking down on us. Google Earth is looking down on us. There's a video of everything. When you have 100 knots and a wind's blowing one way, the smoke goes that way. So you go back to where the smoke is not. You've got the general area of origin, which we were able to pin down right here, and then we lay over that the utility infrastructure. Is there utility equipment out there that could be the source of the ignition? So we do what your doctors would call a differential diagnosis. Was there any lightning out there that day? Nope. Was there any industrial activity going on, a major road? No. Was there any arson out there? No, it's in the middle of a 50-degree slope. We might as well have been walking up a pyramid. The only thing that out there, the only possible ignition source is this transmission line. So we dig in there. This transmission line is between the Goodrich substation and the Gould substation. There's about 5.5 miles of transmission towers between the point of origin and the Gould substation. Here are the 3 towers. I call them Tower 1, Tower 2, and Tower 3. Notice that Tower 3 is shorter than these 2. The real tragedy of why we're here is this fire was ignited by Tower 3, which has been out of commission since 1971. It has been doing no good to anybody for 54 years. I was 4 years old when this stopped serving anybody with any utility whatsoever, which leads to the obvious question about why is it still even there, presenting a hazard. And we'll talk about that. The bottom line is that they've admitted that it was idle since 1971. I call it Tower 3, they call it M16T1. It is a de-energized line that shouldn't have been there. What happened? Your ABC affiliate, Channel 7, did an outstanding job. Before I even got started looking at this, we had a 4-minute long video story, and they identified 4 witnesses for me. Brandon Ford says his power flickered around 6:10. That's a telltale sign of what you call a surge or a fault. At 6:11, Harry Curtanian's mother says she saw power lines sparking. That's something you see when there's a fault without proper grounding. Max Billin was looking at the electrical towers, was the neighbor who saw a flash of light, followed by a small blaze at the tower's base. So I have 3 different witnesses all saying the same thing at the same time. There is an organization called Whisper Labs that has millions of fault detectors all along lines throughout the United States. They detect 2 separate faults, one at 6:10 and 59 seconds, a second 3 seconds later at 6:11:02 at both the Goodrich and the Gould substations. That's the surge of electricity. Of course, your utility comes out and swears in front of God and country we have no faults on our lines that night. And it's just not true. Here is the faults that you see in the equipment. We hammered them pretty hard in this office on the 27th in a press conference, and shazam, the next thing you know, they're writing out a letter later in the day. Okay, well, it turns out maybe we did have a fault detected at 6:11. They knew that. They misled you. They said, well, it's 12 miles away. So what? You've heard about traveling at the speed of light. Electricity's not that fast, but it can get 12 miles in a snap of fingers. Okay? It's electrically connected. So the faults at 6:10 and 6:11 coincide with 2 flashes that the witnesses saw that I've already showed you. So this is coming together. And then we start collecting video and pictures from all these different perspectives across the dial of 360 degrees, and the picture really comes together nicely. You've heard about this Arco station video. A lot of you know where the Arco station here is. This is a street lamp. Don't look here, look over there. The security video captures a flash of light. You won't believe this, at 6:10:58 and 6:11:02. And you're going to see it here. And one of my colleagues that does this had a big press conference. Look at this video I found or whatever. It's an Arco station, but what they didn't know is we had already 3D digitized the entire mountain. So what that allowed us to do is you can't see a lot here. You can just see generally where it's coming from. But we knew where everything was within 3/10 of an inch. So I sent my guys back out there the next morning. And here we are. And there's the video on the day. This is daytime video. And we're looking for fixed objects, poles, filling stations, the house, things that don't move. And through the principle of what's called photogrammetry, you match image pixels in this video to the 3D scan data. Remember, we, in effect, laid down by inch, inch after inch, everything out there. And then we can go forward and see what ignition sources were available in the general vicinity of where we know the fire started from the security video. And as we move on through, you see Tower 1, Tower 2, and Tower 3. Now this is starting to look pretty bad for the utility, right? Well, wait till you pull back. Within 0.3 of an inch, this is what actually happened. We're not extrapolating, we're not interpolating, we're not projecting, we're not guessing. This is what happened. Play the video again. Where's the light coming from? To less than an inch. Put the 3 towers. Street light, ignore that. Where's the first spark at 6:10:59? Upper left-hand corner. That's going to be important in a second. First flash. 3 seconds later, second fault according to Whisper Labs. Second flash. Upper left-hand corner of tower number 3. A few seconds later, those sparks, because of improper grounding, go into the ground and they ignite dried out grasses. And so you're going to see the start of a fire that you see in the video that you've already seen. Here's the fire, and you can see it's at the base of Tower 3. And by the way, all of our experts have been there. We photographed it. We know exactly where it started. Okay? So this is pretty good evidence. But let's look at it from a different angle. Now the witnesses at 6:13 say there's a fire under the power line. We see that in the video. I told the New York Times the fault date of the videos, the witness accounts, all paint the same picture, which I think you just saw. So everything's coming together, okay? Then we get to another video taken at 2297 Sinclair by Nadreen Timiran. This is at 6:14. Importantly, you can see the fire under Tower 3, but not 2 and 1. That's going to turn out to be important, because later on, remember they say a campfire 300 yards down to the left started it. This video shows that to be a lie. And then we pull back out our 3D digitization, and because we've digitized the entire mountain, we know where Miss Timiran was in this house right there. We can swing the camera in effect to where she was located, to the exact inch, and see what her fire says in terms of where it started. We're swinging it around. Closest to us now is Tower 1. Tower 2's next. Shorter one is Tower 3. Where does Miss Timiran's video show that the fire began? And this is some 75 degrees on the clock dial away from the ARCO station. And here we are. This is getting difficult for your utility to deny that its equipment started this fire. Okay? I show this to you because I want you to know we're not guessing. We're not guessing. Now, there are 14 different videos and pictures that we've collected. They're all digital. This is at 6:18 from this Timiran. And this is nice because it shows the spread of the fire from Tower 3 down to Tower 2, down to Tower 1, which, by the way, happens to be in the direction of the Santa Ana winds that evening. It's the way fires spread, right? And then by 6:19, you can see it's progressed to Tower 2. Now, because all of these are shot by iPhones, it's all digital video, and we can match the pixels across the videos and then build, in effect, a compilation over time. At 6:14, it's under Tower 1. 6:18, it's spreading. 6:19, it's by there, and certainly by the end of 6:19, it's spread down the hill towards Tower 2. So we know the direction it's going. Now, other pictures, we've got, like I say, a bunch of them. I won't take you through them, but we can match them all together and play it back. And in effect, by pixel matching, we can create a video of what happened. It's going to show the spread from Tower 3, down the hill to 2, down to 1, and then unfortunately into your homes. Okay? One of the folks that's working with us here was down in Altadena shooting video from his car, and he pulls in, as luck would have it, into the ARCO station. And 17 minutes after this, your town is ablaze. It's an inferno, and I am sorry that you experienced that. But the bottom line is there's not really any doubt that anybody that's trying to be credible can raise with respect to how this fire started. So we have a pretty good idea how the fire started. Why did the fire start? Because of Southern California Edison. There's a neighbor of yours named Rafi Stepanian, who was a former program manager for the California Public Utility Commission's Electrical Safety and Reliability Branch. And he says, look, this line was supposed to be abandoned, so that's a red flag. In other words, you haven't been using it since 1971. Under CPUC rules, you were supposed to take it down if it was abandoned. Now, how did it happen? We know that there's an arc. We know that electricity travels until it stops, almost like a crash test car that hits the side of a wall and bam. Same thing here. Electricity will continue to travel in both directions until it stops, and hopefully it's properly grounded so it doesn't start a fire. And what we see is arcing evidence on Tower 3, which is not present on Tower 1 and 2. So it's not because of weather, it's because of a surge and a burn. And you can see the conductor here. This conductor is not even supposed to be there. When you de-energize a line, you're supposed to eliminate the conductors, take them out. And yet, because it wasn't taken out, you can see the evidence of arcing. And by the way, when you show where that is, it's right in the upper left-hand corner where the ARCO video shows the sparking. So this is coming together very tight, okay? You can see the evidence of burning on both sides. That's not weather, folks. That's arcing on the night. And I can tell you exactly to the second when it happened. 6/10/59, right? All right. But if you have arcing going one way, it's got to go the other. So we go all the way up to the Gould substation. Slime arc tie-off. There's the Gould substation. Here's the tie-off where when they deactivated the line, they tiled it off. You should have evidence of arcing on the same line. Because remember, the electricity's following that line. And so we go up here, and we look at the same corner, and what do we see? You see elongation that's caused by burning, consistent with arcing. You see a conductor. You see deformation that's only something that could be electrically induced. You've got other photographs with burn marks. You've got evidence of burning. It's not on Tower 1 and 2. So when we had our press conference, I was pretty happy with the fact that we had the Times, the Journal, the Post here, and they don't take my word for it. They went and they said, well, we took Watts's photographs, shared them with 5 independent utility ignition experts who each confirmed that the arc marks appear to be fresh, in other words, not caused by weather. And they also explained how this long idle infrastructure could have re-energized. So, why did this happen? It's because a deactivated line that served no purpose for 53 years somehow was reignited by a fault that happened at 6/10/59. And that happened because of decisions that Southern California Edison made, what we call negligence in the law. Negligence is doing something that is not prudent or failing to do something that a reasonably prudent person would have done. And so part of what we can do is look at their brethren, their fellow utility companies to the north, PG&E, to the south, Southern Gas and Electric, and say, what do you do with these idle lines or these abandoned lines? And so we'll visit about that. The Post also took its own photographs, and they noticed a thick metal wire extending from one leg of the tower and lies exposed in the dirt. Its sprays ends sticking out into scorched and blackened brush. 2 utility experts said it's unsafe. We've got photographs of it. The bottom line is they didn't tie down the line. They didn't ground it, which is what led to the fire. And we've got pictures of that. There's a possibility that Tower 3 might have re-energized from another decommissioned tower that stands very close to the Eagle Run circuit where the fault occurred. At that end, there's wire tips that are broken. They appear to be melted. If that wasn't properly grounded, experts said it could have absorbed, but because it wasn't, you have this issue, okay? They didn't ground this stuff appropriately. There's a principle known as electromagnetic induction, where through the principle of high winds and what's called a line slap, they can come together and take electricity from one line and energize the other. In induction, you don't even need them to slap. They just get within the vicinity of each other, and electricity can pass from one to the other. Especially in violent winds, that energy can jump into the de-energized line. By the way, when you go into their file cabinets, the idea of induction is all over it as a known hazard, okay? So what problems do we have? For 42 years, this abandoned line was out there. In 2013, they get a notice to proceed for the removal of these lines. That's 11 and a half, almost 12 years. They didn't ever take it down. The visual evidence shows recent electrical damage on a utility that's been out of commission since the 1970s. That's why your homes are burned down. Somebody made the brilliant decision to cut the power 53 years ago and don't take out the hazard. Now, your neighbor, Stepanian, former CPUC, says there are rules governing how utilities are supposed to treat decommissioned electrical towers. The bottom line is they shouldn't be out there. And then he says lines or portions of lines permanently abandoned shall be removed by their owners so that such lines shall not become a public nuisance or a hazard to life or property. He said, reciting the Utility Commission's regulation from memory. And here it is. General Order 95, Rule 31.6. If you permanently abandon a line, you have to remove it to get rid of the hazard, okay? Now here's where you gotta get into a little bit of lawyer backstroking. They've got a defense. It's not abandoned, it was idle. That's why it's okay to burn down your houses. We just idled it for 53 years. Now, in the truth and fact, we'll talk about this, but back in 2001, they had to pay a multi-million-dollar fine to the PUC after an investigation into their line construction, operation, and maintenance practices. And here's what happened. There was a gentleman in 1998 that was fatally injured when he climbed an SCC pole and came into contact with an Energizer transformer fuse holder. It was abandoned, but never removed. And so they got hit for that. The investigation said that they were abandoned, you should have pulled it down. They requested from Southern California Edison an explanation as to why it had not been removed. And then Edison comes up with this nonsense, well, it wasn't really abandoned, it was idle. They looked at 3,204 polls. They found 4,044 violations of CPUC Rule 95. Every time you violate it, you're subject to a fine. Each violation subjects you to a fine of $500 to $20,000 for each separate violation. They were put on notice, they're subject to this. In fact, they paid a multi-million-dollar fine. And then there was a change of administration. You remember Enron playing with your power. It sinks the governorship of Gray Davis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of my favorite actors, not my favorite governor, but he wins, okay? And so between 2003 and 2011, you get this period of, in effect, deregulation. Again, if you voted for him, I'm not criticizing, it's just the way it is. Democrats tend to regulate, Republicans tend to deregulate. It has consequences for the better, for the worse. And here we are. So Edison sends a fellow by the name of Rajeep Roy. It's vice president of transmission substations. He's responsible for the safe and reliable operations of its electric systems, including its transmission construction and maintenance. And he has to go in front of Chris's former committee, the Assembly's Committee on Utilities and Energy. He testifies on February the 19th, and he says the lines in the Eaton Canyon were, quote, idle, close quote, rather than abandoned. They still have a potential for use. We have to keep lines up because electricity demand is going to grow in the state. We're going to use these lines in 53 years, but that's not abandoned. That's idle. Why did he choose those words? Well, I'm going to show you. This is why. After Schwarzenegger becomes governor, companies like Southern California Edison said, we'd really rather not pay these multi-million-dollar fines for abandoned lines How about we just change the rules? And so they conduct a series of, in effect, meetings, and the commission issues an order instituting rulemaking to revise General Order 95 and just change the rules. The commission is charged with ensuring that electrical utilities comply with the provisions of Rule 95. So you either pull them down and comply with it, or you change Rule 95, right? And that's what happened to you. So Rafi Stepanian was actually there in these groups of meetings held throughout California, alternating between Southern and Northern California, and the geniuses decided, let's change the rule to define permanently abandoned lines as those determined by their owner to have no foreseeable future use. So with respect to Rule 95, we're going to allow the fox to guard the hen house. If they decide it's not abandoned, you can sell the ridiculous soap for 53 years. It's merely idle. And therefore, we don't have to pull it down. The hazard can continue to exist. We can burn down towns. And that's exactly what happened. So this rule was amended in 2005. It became effective in 2006. And all of a sudden, Southern California Edison's off the hook. They don't have to remove a damn thing. 2006. Another 18 and a half, 19 years go by. Not 1 volt of energy is supplied to your town. But we have the hazard of transmission tower and line number 3 up there that can be mitigated if they will only do what's called inspection and maintenance. The abandoned, idled silliness is not going to get them off the hook here. If you choose to call it idled rather than abandoned and not remove it, you have a duty to inspect and to maintain. And yet, they do routine patrols every 36 months. Detailed inspections only as needed. And I'm here to tell you, as somebody that has looked at all these photographs of this equipment, 22 different parts, I've never seen a more as-needed situation as the equipment that was up there. It was shoddy. It was slipshod. There were conductors flying back and forth in the wind. There was all sorts of failure to ground. It is obvious to me that nobody with any experience ever actually went up there and took a look, because it would have been obvious to them if they'd done it. So they got a real problem. Failure to do what others in reasonably similar circumstances have done. San Diego Gas and Electric has filed papers that says, well, when we identify equipment as idle, we begin the process for removal. The equipment will be removed within 12 months. So if they have just done what their reasonably prudent neighbor next door had done, we would have had about 18 years to spare. But they didn't do it. My friends at Pacific Gas and Electric have very clear utility procedures for the management of idle electric transmission lines. And they talk about what you have to do and how you do it. And the bottom line is they acknowledge that the proper management of these idle facilities in the system is, quote, essential to PG&E's goals of improving public safety and minimizing risk with wildfires. If PG&E could understand that, Southern California Edison should have as well. There's all sorts of things they do, but the bottom line is they're performing work to ground it and to remove permanently abandoned lines. So if you're going to leave it up there, at least properly ground it. Don't let it swing in the wind. One of the factors that indicate that a facility may not be idle is conductors have been removed. The conductors were still there. They should have been removed. If they had been removed, we wouldn't have had this fire. You've got to ensure that the facility is grounded and all safety issues are resolved. If you take an action that creates an idle facility, then the project manager must ensure that the project scope includes de-energizing and removing the facility, so their neighbors to the south, their neighbors to the north show what they were doing was just as negligent as you can be. You patrol, you inspect, and maintain the facility that's been idled until it is removed. You don't just play this idle abandon game and let it sit there for 53 years presenting a hazard, okay? Importantly, PG&E recognizes that sectionalizing a de-energized circuit can mitigate the effects of induction. Remember how we went 5.5 miles to the Gould substation? That electricity's flying through. If you want to minimize the risk of induction from one line to the other, make the separation shorter, sectionalize it. Cut it into pieces and it won't swing like that. And they didn't do it. They could have established open points to sectionalize the de-energized idle transmission lines into shorter sections. They could have installed permanent grounding per the recommendation like PG&E does. They did none of this. Just 5.5 miles of the sloppiest stuff you've ever seen, okay? Temporary grounds are a good idea if you gotta do it, but permanent grounding is a preferred, or the removal of de-energized idle transmission lines are completed. Guys, we haven't even gotten into their file cabinets yet. This is what we found on just internet searches. Can you imagine when these depositions start? These people are cooked. PG&E, if the de-energized idle transmission line will remain de-energized for 31 days or more, then install permanent grounding. There's no excuse not to have it grounded right. You have to replace broken, damaged, missing permanent grounds according to PG&E. So all that was known, all that was reasonable conduct. They say they're gonna remove it in October of 2013. They don't for 11 years. It gets to last year. It's the last day of February, so we're almost a year ago. The CPUC does an audit and finds violations of its orders by Southern California Edison. And the bottom line is they're saying you're not inspecting. You have a duty to inspect these lines and you're not doing it. And we want you to issue corrective action by April the 4th of 2024. If they had done so and inspected these lines, we still have 8-9 months to go. And yet they did nothing. By October, there's a decision by the Office of Infrastructure Safety concerning Southern California Edison's failure to inspect transmission lines. And they said you promised to inspect 28,000 of them. You didn't do 3,500 of them. You must improve your response to environmental and access constraints given the impacted assets will still present wildfire risk. Basically, they said we weren't able to get up there. It's kind of a tall mountain. So we didn't inspect it. And somehow on the one side of their mouth, they can't get up there to inspect, but on the other side of the mouth, people can go up there and camp to start the fire. This is the level of nonsense that you guys were being fed. All right, litigation. Some lawyer word for a lawsuit, the process of a lawsuit. The lawsuit is underway. On the one hand, I put Altadena Strong, that's the plaintiffs. It's all of you guys and the people that for whom we've already filed lawsuits. There's lawyers. There's a lawyer group called Consumers Attorneys of California. In my state, it's called the Texas Trial Lawyers. It's plaintiffs' lawyers representing guys like you on the one side and Edison on the other side. You go in front of a court and you have to prove causation. Lots of lawyers like to wait around for CAL FIRE. I learned in the Tubbs fire, thou shalt not wait on CAL FIRE. It took them well over a year and they got it wrong. I'm not complaining about CAL FIRE, good organization. Okay, but we do our own fire investigation. We reach our own conclusions, and in here we were able to conclude, I think you see exactly what happened inside of a month. We then go to the courts, the Superior Courts of California in Los Angeles. Honorable Laura Siegel. We got real lucky. I have had wildfires in this county where it was impossible to get the judge to do a thing. This judge has been all over us from the minute those lawsuits ended up in her court. We drew an excellent judge, and I'll explain why that in a second. We could end up in bankruptcy court. Trust me, that's not the worst thing. We know that from PG&E. But right now we're in Los Angeles Superior Court in front of Judge Siegel. Remind me to correct that spelling error. I think it's E-I. All right, so we're getting organized. Every Monday at 5 o'clock, we have a Zoom meeting. There's my ugly mug. There's a bunch of my colleagues. We get together. We compare notes. I showed them all that animation you've got. Everybody kind of understands what's happening. We've organized ourselves into different committees so that everybody's not doing the same work. We've got experts, we've got discovery, we've got protective orders, legal motions, the master complaint. Trust me, we're organized, and we're working well together, which is good for everybody, okay? All right. The judge says we're not gonna let you take any discovery until you get organized and we coordinate the case. We're doing all these Zoom meetings, we're coordinated. We understand who is what, who's in charge of what, and the like. The court originally set a hearing for February the 10th, then the 20th, then the 26th, the 5th, and the 17th. These are not canceled hearings. These are things that we've done in court. And she's staying on us. If you'd have told me in Los Angeles County I could have 5 hearings in a month, I would have coughed in appreciation. Because of the Bobcat fire, that was impossible. This judge is on the ball, okay? All right. They want to do something called washing. He said it's really important to wash the lines. Of course, when you wash the lines, you change the evidence. They've already energized the lines without telling us, and it caused sparks and lights, which is good for us. But they spoliated the evidence, they changed it, so they got a little problem there. But the bottom line is they need to give us the relay fault data, the magnitude, the timing of the fault, ID the piece of equipment that caused the fault. They need to preserve the physical evidence. We're having fights with them all about this stuff, okay? But our next hearing is March the 5th, and then we'll get organized on the 17th. But our judge is doing well. To their credit, after we threw a stink, they agreed to delay the washing until after the March 17th hearing so we could go argue about it in front of the judge. Now, let me just stop there and tell you that in 35 years of doing this, it is a rare thing indeed where I stand up in front of a group and say, 20 days into the investigation, I can try the case tomorrow and win it. But I think you see those videos, that's not bragging. It is what it is, what it is. They started the fire. Under California's law of what's called inverse condemnation, they have to pay for your property damage caused by the fire that their equipment started. A lot of us have heard about the U.S. constitutional provision against taking, the takings clause. The government can't come in and take your property without giving you due compensation, okay? It exists in the California Constitution. Your courts have construed that provision. It says, look, when you give a utility company a government-sanctioned monopoly to provide power, it's as if the government is doing it. And so the courts have said, if that government-sanctioned utility monopoly through a fire burns down your property, you're entitled to compensation. It's strict liability. I don't even have to prove they were negligent to win the case. But I think you can see we are plenty prepared to do so. But winning the case is not enough, okay? The PG&E fire, it took $25.5 billion by new investors to pay all the fire bills, $1 billion to the governmental units, $11 billion to the insurance companies that wanted their money back, and $13.5 billion to the fire victims, people like you. Somebody's got to come up with that $25 billion. By our calculation, in order to fully pay for the damage from the Eaton fire and to make your community look like Coffee Park right here, and to pay everybody back, I think we're looking at about a $20 billion fire. That is an estimate. It could be higher, it could be lower, but everybody I talk to says we've got to find $20 billion. And they're going to tell you they don't have it. So there are political advocacy efforts that are necessary to turn this into this, because, like I say, I like to joke in the legal field that verdicts feed egos, settlements feed families. The job is to rebuild your house. That takes money, we gotta find it. We had Al Sharpton in here, because I was real concerned about this people coming in and buying little old ladies' lots. Most people, if they were in Texas, they would be shocked. Okay, it's not cool. It's taking advantage of people in times of need. I beg of you, do not sell your properties to these people. They're not paying you what they're worth. You're gonna regret moving out of your community, and there is hope on the way. Secondly, there are two different kinds of damages in California. If you have a present intent to rebuild your home, you get the cost to rebuild it. If you sell your land and move to Arizona, you get the value of the property the day before the fire. There's about a 50% difference between the two. So in addition to, doing the wrong thing and taking some poor little old lady's money, they're cutting her damages by 50% too. Don't do it. Don't sell unless you absolutely have to. Because I'm telling you, this community is coming back and we are on the fast track to get it there. So that's the litigation process. We got lucky. We have a good judge. Okay? Then we got to raise a bunch of money. Not me, but the people that are going to take care of this for Southern California Edison. There's a group of investors in New York called hedge funds that specialize in the utility areas. I know a lot of these guys. These people put together the $25.5 billion to take PG&E out of bankruptcy. There's all sorts of New York funds that will invest in claims and buy claims of other people. There's all sorts of bankers that will loan guys like me and clients money to help get them through it and like that. So we're going to make that all available to you. There's a group out of England called the Tester that wants to advance money to clients and stuff like that. Beware of the interest rates on this kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, the value of that is this. Once we settle this case, it becomes a tradable commodity for which people will advance you money. And what I like about that is you don't have to wait several years to get a deal with your bank to start building your house. You know the money's coming, so we can start building faster, which is good. Okay, in addition to getting money from the hedge funds, we'll have to come in and inject money into the company. I have the State of California Assembly, the State Senate, Governor Newsom, and the CPUC. One of the reasons that Chris Holden is here is he wrote AB 1054. I mean, life is a circle. Can you imagine the odds of that? This man that literally saved Northern California and the utility system of this state happens to be from your town. And here we are in a fire that affected your town. I just could not believe when I got to meet him that I found out he wrote that bill. It's one of the best pieces of legislation I've ever seen. And he's here to help you again. And I'm honored to have him on our team. And he is the best argument I know against term limits because he's so experienced. He's so wise, and he's got all these relationships, so he's going to be key. We needed to get the word out. If you don't know who he is, of course, he was your mayor in Pasadena. He was in the Assembly for 12 years, but he was the guy. I mean, literally, House Appropriations, he was the majority leader. He wrote the bill that created the $20.5 billion wildfire fund. It's going to be everything as to why you get to rebuild your homes, and we'll talk about that in a second. Just to make sure that I'm not bragging on him, he's the author, okay? Victory has many fathers, and I love to brag about our $13.5 billion settlement. It's one of my proudest achievements. This man and that bill is the reason that was possible. I had a bunch of bankruptcy lawyers fight with each other over nothing for years until he slipped into that bill. Oh, by the way, if you want to participate, you have to be out of bankruptcy court with a confirmed plan within 9 months. And all of a sudden, these guys that were complete jerks became the most conciliatory deal makers I've ever seen. That was him, okay? That kind of thinking is the reason that this is not going to take forever if we get there. So I'm very proud that he has agreed to be the chief executive officer of this organization. He's going to be a pivotal reason that we're going to be able to put together the litigation, the state money, the AB 1054. All this is a collective effort that we're going to need. And then, of course, we may need help from Congress and the White House. Why do you say that, Michael? Let me tell you why I say that. 2 reasons. The last time this guy was in the White House was in 2020. We're settling the PG&E case, and his FEMA department makes a lien for $5 billion on that $13.5 billion fund. And people are screaming at me like I'm the biggest village idiot there is. Trump's FEMA department decided to forego that lien with some help from some of his friends. But it was so important. Whoever's in the White House has everything to do with this, okay? And so these guys When he got off the plane, they were being adults, even though they don't agree politically, okay? That's what leaders do, and that's gonna be an important part. The other thing that happened here is for years, people were taking the position that even though you paid your taxes and then paid for your house, when it burned down, the cost to replace it needed to be taxed again. That's absurd. So originally we started, lobbying the California legislature and got them to agree that the state of California is not going to tax wildfire recoveries. But then we went to Congress, no, Congress, no, Congress, no, despite the fact that the old Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, was replaced by the new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, both from California, couldn't get it done. Super frustrating. We kept bugging them. Doug was working on it and the like. And last December, 2 months ago, the House finally passed House Resolution 5863. The Senate passed it by unanimous voice vote. The Federal Disaster Relief Act of 2023, President Biden signed it. So all of those fires, those 22 fires in California, all of them are now tax-free. All you have to do is file an amended return, which is good. But the reason I bring this up is we still have political pressure to apply, because this only applies to tax years beginning after December 31, 2019 and before January 1, 2026. So we don't settle this case this year, which to be honest with you is likely, it won't happen that fast. We got to go back to Congress, get them to extend this. There will come a time where I ask you to write your congressperson, when I ask you to write the assembly, when I ask you to get in the face of the senator. Okay? There's a group of people that sat in a room like this in Santa Rosa in 2018, when in response to burning down the town of Santa Rosa, PG&E had the gall to introduce a bill to get rid of inverse condemnation, to deprive future fire victims of the ability to use it to rebuild their homes. And to reward us for that gall, then they killed 85 people, burned down 14,000 houses. But the reason it didn't happen is people that we represented wrote a bunch of letters. And they got with Erin Brockovich, who stormed the Capitol in Sacramento and raised bloody murder and stopped the bill, which turned out to be very wise, because several weeks later they burned down Paradise. We're going to need you guys to do advocacy. When we ask you to do that, please do it. It works, okay? We're going to want to do it to make sure that this is taxable. All right. Lastly, I want to make two commitments to you. The first one's obvious. We will work as hard as we can to rebuild this town with you. The second one is this office will be here in your community until the job is done. You know where it is. I like that it's across from the IBEW. I like that it's right off the highway. Tell your friends where it is. It's called the law, says of Doug Boxer. He's our California lawyer. We have to use that. He is here around the clock. So are all of your neighbors in green shirts that we've hired on your behalf. We will not leave. You can come in. We will talk to you. We will fill out application forms. We will work on your damages. This is your home for this project. Altadena is not for sale. We will have meeting after meeting after meeting to educate you and your neighbors. And all I ask is one thing. Pick up this phone, text 10 of your neighbors about what you saw tonight. We'll be back over and over and over again. Last Friday, we did a meeting, and last Saturday morning, Christian and I got on a plane to Maui to go talk to clients whose settlement has already happened in the office that we have not shut down, to give them the information about how they can divide up that $4.037 billion. And I was super proud of it because, you know, my buddy Christian, his job was to find the right people to make this deal. And one of the right people was his son, who was about to take a job at Oracle. And he was one of the first people in Maui. He said, I'm not going to go to that job in Oracle. I'm going to come out to Altadena, California, and to help people. And he won't leave like his dad until we're done. Okay? So if you would, the way this works is people who are in this community, I found the most photogenic right next to my face built for radio. Ladies, you will never do something more meaningful in your life, except have kids. This counts. I'm thrilled that they're working with us. We are better because of them. We're training them all in the left room. That's my partner, Jerry. Where is Jerry? Is he in the back? Jerry's the one that duked it out with Southern California Edison and Bobcat. There's all sorts of information. And then Christian's people will take you through how to deal with FEMA. What you need to do to get your property scraped. By the way, the EPA's gotten faster about that. Maui's completely ready to rebuild. You're gonna have to get around the California Coastal Commissions from time to time, the County of Los Angeles, the City of Altadena permits, you get the whole deal. These people are trained to help you through that. Please get organized. People will try to rip you off, and it ain't just lawyers. Okay? There are builders who will take your money and leave town. We're gonna spend a lot of time tomorrow with the Teamsters and other labor unions, the people that built this country. I think it's a core part of who's gonna rebuild this town. Why do I make the promise that we're gonna be in your community until the job is done? I do it for the very obvious reason. Anytime you come in here, I want you to remember this poster. I've done some of the biggest cases in the United States. I've pulled 17 million defective Firestone tires off the road. I've recalled drugs. I've won this case. There's nothing that is more meaningful than taking that and turning it into this. And I'm sitting here to promise you, if we do this case right, that's exactly what's going to happen. You, by getting on your text and texting 10 people and getting 10 people to come, if we get the community organized, you will cause your town to rebuild. And these are the people in Maui who 19 months after that fire have seen it happen before their very eyes. It will happen to you if we do this correctly. So thanks for coming. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Michael, again, we'll stay here as late as there are questions to be asked, but always feel free to come by our office to do one-on-one questions. There are lots of questions that people won't want to ask in a group setting. This office is built to be able to handle and make sure everybody's case and individual questions are handled on a one-on-one basis. So please feel free to come by anytime, schedule an appointment on your way out if you'd like to come in and visit with one of our lawyers or one of our folks. But we'll stay here and answer any questions until, well, there aren't any more tonight.
One other thing real quick before we close it down. Each of you should have gotten one of these folders, okay? Christian, these are prettier than ever. Take them. Take 10 of them if you want. Just don't throw them in the trash, okay? If you choose to get involved, and I'm not one of these people that pressurizes the situation, on the right side, you're gonna see a one-page contract. Run away from law firms that have 16-page contracts full of Latin to show you how smart they are. Okay, I try to speak plainly. 7 paragraphs. The first is the firm's authority. If you hire us, you're giving us the authority to act on your behalf in the court of law. The second is client's cooperation. Trust me when I tell you that the reason that Christian's army of people here is so important. I'm pretty good on the liability side, I like to think. We got that one figured out. I can't prove up your damages for each and every one of you unless you come in here and cause this team to follow the protocol that we've done. You must cooperate. It's a two-party system here for us to get you fully paid. Do not pay lawyers by the hour to do this. They'll rip you off. We operate under what's called a contingency fee. Contingent, if we're wrong, we take the loss. You don't pay $1. There's a lady in the back sitting down who's my banker from New York. She loans me hundreds of millions of dollars to do crazy cases like this over and over and over and over. And each of you will have in effect, you know, we keep track of it. The good news is because we represent so many people, we have incredible buying power, economies of scale. I told you about that Tubbs fire where Cal Fire got it wrong. I had a guy named Mike Schultz, who is the world's best fire cause and origin guy, living at the site of the Tubbs fire for 6 months, interviewing everybody, grabbing everything. He charged me $1 million. If you were my only client, had to pay a third in attorney's fees and $1 million reimbursement, it would sink the ship. But we had 2,000 clients, So 2,000 of you got access to the world's best fire cause and origin for $500 a piece. Economies of scale. That's why we do these meetings over and over again. Generally, we can keep those expenses down to 2, 3, 4, 5%. So you can count on recovering about 65 cents on the dollar. And the good news is in California, the inverse condemnation rule says you get your attorney's fees on top of your property damage. So they have to pay for your attorney's fees, which is really helpful, okay? Paragraph 4 is expenses. Just trust me, we will do everything we can to keep the expenses down as far as we can, and we're really pretty good at that, okay? Paragraph 5, multiple clients. What is that? You remember that example about $1 million divided by 2,000? The advantage of that is economies of scale. You want that. You don't want each of you going to 1,000 different lawyers and having to hire 1,000 different experts. We want those economies of scale. The flip side is I can represent a bunch of people, but you have to be told that, and you have to consent to it, okay? I am telling you that I represent a lot of people already, okay? It's not 1,000, it's gonna be. Real quick. Economies of scale. By signing this, you're acknowledging that, okay? Paragraph 6. This is a new one, artificial intelligence. Some of the ethics rules say that I need to tell you that we may use artificial intelligence. Please believe we're not selling your information. It's just if there's thousands of pages of documents, I can pay somebody $35 an hour to read them, or I can get my daughter who knows this stuff cold to feed it into one of those deals and she can find the answer in like 4 seconds. It's an efficiency deal, but we'll safeguard your information. Paragraph 7, law and venue. I hate when lawyers from out of state, Florida, down south, San Diego, up north, San Francisco, say, oh, by the way, if you want to sue me, we have to go to arbitration. Can't tell anybody I did anything wrong. Secret. And you have to come to my hometown and sue me knowing you can't possibly afford to do so. Okay? If you get in a dispute with this group, you sue me right here in your county, and I'll come defend myself if I didn't do anything wrong, and if I did, I'll make it up to you. It doesn't happen because we try to do the right thing. And lastly, this is just important, it says you're acknowledging there's no solicitation. Heard of ambulance chasers? I just prefer they all be shot. Okay? You are entitled to come to a group meeting to listen to information and make your own volitional choice whether to hire. People are not entitled to knock on your door and say, can I be your lawyer? If you want us to represent you, go to the backside, you sign it, you send it in, they'll use my computer signature to countersign it, that becomes a contract, we'll send it back to you as California law requires. I need some stuff. I need your email address. And I need your cell phone number. I will not sell it, okay? The U.S. mail, if we got any postal workers here, I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, 22% of mail gets lost, okay? Most of you, especially fire victims, change your address and forget to do the notification. Mail just gets lost. Emails go with you, especially now that we all have one of these. Texts go with you. I'm closing up a case called Zantac. We're sending out thousands of texts with Michael, hey, your deadline's tomorrow, make sure you get it in. And it ticks out to 17,000 people for free, okay? So we're gonna do that. And then lastly, I need the names, dates of birth of everybody that was in that house, okay? One of the things that I love about California law is you're not the only one that ran for your life from a wall of fire. If there were minors in your house, they did too. And you, as their guardian, should do what's in their best interest. You can put a lot of kids through college through these lawsuits. Okay? So if you've done that, let us know. So really what I need to know is where you are now. I know that will change, and I'm sorry. What the damaged property is. I need to tell all my people, hey, do the Google Earth picture at this address. Get the property damage information at that address and the like. Okay? Did you lose a business? If you did, you have a business loss claim. Did you lose a loved one? I know 17 of you did. You're in this room, you have my deepest sympathies. I'm so sorry. But you have a wrongful death claim. There are 9 people that suffered serious burns that have physical injury claims. And so the bottom line is we just need enough information to get started, and what will happen, it'll all get fed into a database, and we'll start a communications program. Doug writes a weekly update. I think it's every Friday. He's been doing it for as long as I know him. You will hear from us repetitively. There will be people in green shirts in this room ready to meet with you at all times of the day, okay? When Christian and I flew to Maui the other day, that kid of his that's so proud of, he was the only one in this office and he met with 9 different clients. But we will have people to meet with you when you're ready to go, okay? All right, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for coming. If you got any questions, fire away. Anybody? Yes, sir.
I live in Sierra Madre and my house didn't burn, but now I've got mud flow. So
Now you got what? I missed it.
mud flow.
Mud flow, yeah.
Mud slide.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Particularly if you're up against the hill, that's a real problem. I know it for multiple reasons. Number one is common sense. If everything burned out, mudslides are a problem. The first fire that I can recall being involved in here in Los Angeles was the Thomas Fire. There were only 2 people killed in the fire. There were 23 people killed within 3 weeks thereafter in mudslides. It's a hazard, okay? So if you live adjacent to the hill, please be careful. One of your elements of damage is the cost to remediate that. It's recognized by the Congress and the fire that the government started in New Mexico. We've got experts that are at the ready to do, in effect, flood mitigation, and it needs to be done for your own safety, okay? Who else? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about if you're in the lawsuit, when you win the lawsuit, and you have insurance on your home.
Yeah.
They've been very good, and they paid off and everything too. Did they come after the money?
Yeah, okay.
And did they take the money from you to reimburse themselves?
Glad you asked that question. They'll have their own lawsuit, and we cooperate with them. In fact, tomorrow night after the 2 Teamsters meeting, I'm going to some place called the Hula Hula Bar to have a drink with the Sub-Road lawyer, talk about how we can figure out how to work together. These guys are really smart. They've got really good experts. They do their lawsuit, we do ours. And so, in PG&E, they recovered $11 billion, we recovered $13.5, and we don't mess with each other, okay? Now, to be clear, nobody is gonna pay Mikal Watts a fee on what you collected from your insurance company. That's not my business. You paid the premiums, you have the relationship, collect what you can collect, okay? What I'm here to tell you is my experience has been we're all kind of tragically underinsured. For every guy like you that got the full boat insurance, there's clowns like me that never read his insurance policy until I started doing this, didn't realize that there was an artificial cap on contents well below what I had. Just fill it out until you get to that cap. We get you the rest of it. A lot of it doesn't cover stuff on the outside, the cost to redo that driveway, the new bushes, the 6 inches of sod, replace the shed. It depends on your insurance policy. But if you feel like you were fully paid, you don't get to recover twice. We're not going after things for which you've already been paid, okay? But I'm telling you, I've done this 21,000 times. There's always something that insurance doesn't pay for. And then over and above the economic damage, if you were in the quote zone of danger, running for your life, you have a mental anguish claim that insurance doesn't cover. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just not clear. Will the insurance companies come after us?
No, they file and settle their own lawsuit and extinguishes their claim against you. We're having a little scrap with them in Maui that you may have read about. The law's different over there. Here, we've always done, they do their lawsuit, we do ours, we don't mess with each other, they don't come after our clients. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
How do you calculate mental anguish and nuisance?
Okay, so mental anguish and nuisance is what's called a non-pecuniary damage. Pecuniary is a lawyer word for financially calculable, okay? It's really the risk of whatever a jury says it is. There's been some litigation up in Oregon where juries say that's a lot of money, so it's a risk that they've got if they start trying these cases. If we do a global settlement, things go into a fire victims trust like up in PG&E, the trustee decides that. But you'll have to decide whether you want to participate in that or settle your lawsuit in. We'll just see where it goes, okay? But the honest answer is, whatever we think a jury's gonna do, mitigated by what are the probabilities we lose. You gotta do better at court to cover expenses, so it's expensive to go to trial, you gotta beat it. But it's dangerous for them to go to trial in these cases, particularly with this fine performance of having 53 years of hazard with no benefit. I mean, I just don't think the risk of losing this is very high at all. Don't believe a lawyer that says you can't lose a case. I've lost plenty of them, but I don't think this is gonna be one of them, okay? Yes,
Just
sir.
one question about insurance.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I also had an apartment building that burned down, it's underinsured.
Yes,
So
you can make a claim
for the,
for the apartment building. And again, a lot of you guys hold houses and buildings in trusts. The trust will be the plaintiff, whatever the vehicle is that you
Right.
own the stuff in. If you rented an apartment, you know, you don't own the building, but all the stuff in it was your content, you can recover that.
Oh, because I was gonna
If
say,
I
our
can-
son lived in the apartment, and he did not have
Any insurance. Yeah, so all of his
He lost
contents,
everything.
everything that was in there, he could recover. Go ahead, Chris.
Real quick, we have, Michael mentioned earlier, his name is Harold DeLuise, and he helps all of our clients, especially right now with insurance. And so, sit down and talk with Harold, so he can look over whatever policy there is, and he's, you know, that's what we're here to do, is help you through that process, so you can maximize your insurance claims.
Right.
And if he doesn't have any, what are the next steps without insurance? So Harold DeLuise, we call him H, he's here somewhere.
Harold was at substantial risk of dying and going south, and we're gonna bring him into the light as the good guy. He's a former insurance guy. No, I'm kidding, but he knows what he's doing. He's supervising, okay, because he knows the way that gets done. I like to tease him. He's a great guy and a valued member of our team. Yes, ma'am.
Will this be expanded?
There he is, Harold with the beard on.
Uh-oh.
Going straight to heaven for doing his insurance job. Go ahead.
Will this be expanded to the county? A lawsuit for the county for not having a properly working system of alerting people?
Okay, so I don't think so, and here's why. There's a doctrine till recently called separation of powers. And the courts construe that doctrine as the judicial branch shouldn't impose tort liability for discretionary acts of the executive branch. It's called the discretionary function immunity doctrine, and so generally, courts throw out complaints against the county for not having enough of this, not having enough of that. California has a pretty good exception called the Tort Claims Act. Sometimes you can do that. I'm on the fence as to whether that's likely, and to be honest with you, I've seen enough video of how fast this fire happened. I'm not sure all the water in the world would stop this in time. It
Well,
was
not
such
even-
an inferno.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not just the water, I'm speaking specifically to the alert system.
Yeah,
That
so-
some people did or did
It's
not receive.
The alert. There's a gentleman whose name I've forgotten that was in the administration of Sonoma County. The Tubbs fire started 15 miles away on the other side of the hill. He knew it was coming. He didn't want to cause a panic, so he didn't set off the town's alarm. 34 people died. There's a similar gentleman that didn't want to set off a panic, didn't set off a Lahaina's alarm. 102 people died. And I've looked at the law on both of them hard, and I don't think it's viable because of the discretionary function immunity act. Now, is there all sorts of blame to go around politically? You bet. But in the courts, I wouldn't bet on it. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
For Saturday, when you have a workshop on insurance,
Yes.
should we, if we come, should we bring our policy?
Yeah, we had one last Saturday. Harold, when's the next workshop on insurance?
This Saturday.
Oh, every Saturday, great. Okay, good.
10:30.
All right.
So is last Saturday the same as this coming up Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Saturday at 10:30.
The last time I watched the Dodgers play, we were working on the Tubbs fire, and I was proud to watch the Astros beat the Dodgers, and then I found out we were banging on. I was so humiliated to figure out we were cheating and we didn't do it. Anyway, go ahead. Anybody else? All right, guys, thank you for coming. Y'all have a good evening. Appreciate it.